Derrick Lawson thought his pregnant wife would break in front of everybody. He thought that once he slid those divorce papers into her shaking hands, she would cry, beg, and embarrass herself in front of the entire church. He wanted that moment. He wanted to watch Nia Whitmore collapse. What he did not know was that Nia's father had been dead for less than 2 hours. His casket was still beside the altar, and before the sun went down that same day, the broken woman Derrick was throwing away would become the sole controller of an $800 million fortune. And by the time Derrick learned the truth, the doors to her new life would already be locked. If you enjoy stories about betrayal, revenge, and impossible comebacks, stay with me until the end, because this one does not unfold the way anyone expected. Nia Whitmore stood at the front steps of St. Mark's Cathedral with one hand under her belly and the other clutched around a black handkerchief soaked with tears. She was 7 months pregnant. Her eyes were swollen, her body was exhausted, and her heart had already taken more pain than most people could survive in a year. Inside that church, she had just buried her father, Isaiah Whitmore, a quiet man the world knew as a retired engineer, a church donor, and a private community mentor. To Nia, he had been everything. He had been the one person who never lied to her, never used her, never asked her to prove her worth. Now he was gone. And while the choir's final hymn still echoed through the open church doors, Derrick adjusted his cufflinks, stepped in front of his pregnant wife, and pulled a sealed envelope from inside his jacket. At first, Nia barely looked at him. She assumed he was offering condolences, maybe an apology. Maybe, for 1 second, he had remembered that she had just buried her father. But Derrick did not come close to hold her. He did not touch her shoulder. He did not say, "I'm here." He held out the envelope and said coldly, "You need to sign these as soon as possible." Nia blinked through tears. "What is this?" His jaw tightened. Divorce papers. For a second, the world seemed to go soundless. The traffic faded. The church bells disappeared. Even the voices around them turned into nothing but static. Nia looked from the envelope to his face, as if her mind refused to process what her ears had just heard. "Derrick," she whispered. "Today?" "Actually," he said, lowering his voice with a kind of cruelty that only gets worse when it's calm. "Today is perfect. You're already emotional, so maybe you'll stop pretending this marriage can still be saved." Nia took a slow step back. Her cousin Simone, who had been greeting family near the church entrance, immediately noticed the tension and started moving toward them. But Derrick kept going. He wanted an audience. He wanted witnesses. He wanted power. "I'm tired, Nia," he said. "Tired of your sadness, tired of your drama, tired of carrying a marriage that stopped feeling like a marriage a long time ago. Your father is gone. Your life is about to get more complicated. You need somebody stronger than you, and honestly, I don't want that burden." Nia stared at him as if he had slapped her. "I am carrying your child." He gave a small shrug. "And that doesn't change the truth." By then, a few people had turned to watch. Older church mothers froze on the steps. A deacon pretended not to stare. Simone reached Nia's side and said, "What is wrong with you? This is not the place." Derrick did not even look ashamed. In fact, he seemed energized. "There was never going to be a right place with her family always around," he said. "So yes, I'm doing it now." Then he leaned closer to Nia and said something so cruel so perfectly timed to hit her weakest wound that Simone gasped. You were easier to love when you still came with hope. Nia's mouth trembled open. He had done it. He had found the exact sentence to make a grieving, pregnant woman feel discarded like old furniture. And then, as if the humiliation was still not enough, a voice called from the parking lane. Derrick, are you coming? Nia turned. Standing by a silver Mercedes in a cream coat and sunglasses was Janelle Brooks. Beautiful, polished, impatient, and far too comfortable for a woman who should not have been there. Nia felt the blood leave her face. Janelle lifted one brow, took off her sunglasses, and gave a look that was not subtle enough to be mistaken for anything else. Possession. Derrick did not deny it. He simply glanced toward Janelle and said, I don't want to do this in circles, Nia. It's over. Sign the papers and let's both move on like adults. Adults? Simone snapped. You brought another woman to your wife's father's funeral. Janelle crossed her arms. I stayed in the car. As if that makes you human, Simone shot back. Nia finally looked down at the envelope in her hand. She could feel her baby moving. A tiny kick. A reminder that she was not allowed to fall apart completely, no matter how badly her soul wanted to. Her voice came out thin. How long? Derrick frowned. What? How long have you been with her? He exhaled like he was annoyed by the inconvenience of honesty. Long enough to know I should have left sooner. Simone nearly lunged at him. 2 ushers had to step in. Nia did not scream. She did not slap him. She did not beg. That was the moment Derrick made his biggest mistake, because he took her silence for weakness. He saw her shaking hands and thought she had no fight left. He looked at her swollen eyes and thought she would spend the next few months trying to win him back. He had no idea that silence can sometimes be the first shape dignity takes before it turns into power. Derrick gave the envelope one last push against her palm. Have your lawyer send it back. Then he turned and walked toward Janelle. No hesitation, no remorse, no backward glance. Nia stood on those church steps, holding divorce papers in one hand and the memory of her father's burial in the other, while the father of her unborn child got into another woman's car and drove away like he had just dropped off dry cleaning. That night, Nia did not go home. She could not. Every room in the house she shared with Derrick felt contaminated by performance. The kitchen, where he used to kiss her forehead, now felt staged. The bedroom, where they had picked baby names, felt like a crime scene. So Simone took her to her own apartment, wrapped her in a blanket, and sat beside her on the couch while silence filled the room. Hours passed before Nia finally spoke. I think he was waiting for today. Simone turned to her. What do you mean? Nia stared at nothing. He knew I would be weak today. He knew I wouldn't have the energy to fight him. He planned it. Simone did not answer right away, because the truth was obvious. Men like Derrick did not become heartless overnight. They only waited for the most profitable moment to show it. Nia rested a trembling hand over her stomach. What kind of person does that to somebody who's carrying their baby? Simone's eyes hardened. A man who is not worthy of either of you. At 9 the next morning, while Nia was still sitting at the dining table in one of Simone's oversized sweatshirts, her phone rang from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. Hello? A calm, older male voice replied, Good morning. May I speak with Ms. Nia Whitmore? This is she. My name is Ellis Grant. I was your father's attorney for 23 years. First, let me offer my condolences. Second, I need to see you today. It is urgent. Nia straightened. Is something wrong? Nothing is wrong, he said carefully. But there is something your father instructed me to tell you only in the event of his passing. Simone, standing across the kitchen, instantly read the fear on Nia's face. Nia swallowed. Can this wait a few days? I just buried him. I'm sorry, Ellis said. It can't. By noon, Nia was seated in a quiet law office downtown, wearing a simple black dress, no makeup, and the expression of somebody whose grief had not even had room to settle before life demanded more from her. Ellis Grant was in his late 60s, silver-haired, steady-eyed, and carrying the particular calm of a man who had spent decades guarding explosive information. He placed a file on the desk. Nia, he said, your father trusted me with matters he believed would one day protect you. Nia's fingers tightened around a paper cup of tea. Protect me from what? Ellis looked at her directly. From your husband. Those words landed harder than she expected. Nia frowned. My husband? Your father never trusted Derrick Lawson. Nia let out a tired breath. Well, that doesn't matter now. Derrick served me divorce papers yesterday. Ellis did not react with surprise. Instead, he nodded once, almost as if something had just been confirmed. Then your father was right to be careful. He opened the file and slid over a set of documents. The top page carried ownership charts, company records, and a name Nia recognized only vaguely from business magazines. Apex Nova Systems. Nia, 28 years ago, your father was not simply an engineer. He was one of the original architects and silent founding partners of Apex Nova Systems. He exited public leadership early, stayed private by design, and retained an ownership stake through a series of trusts and holdings. Nia stared at him. Then she looked down at the documents again, then back at him. I don't understand what you're saying. Ellis folded his hands. I'm saying your father died one of the wealthiest private men in this state. Nia laughed once, not because anything was funny, because shock sometimes escapes the body looking like the wrong emotion. No, she whispered. No, my father lived in the same brick house for 30 years. He drove a truck older than me. Because he chose to, Ellis said. He believed money reveals character faster than hardship does. He kept his life modest on purpose. Nia's breathing changed. Her chest tightened. The room suddenly felt too small. How much? She asked, barely audible. Ellis did not soften it. Your father's estate, including equity, cash reserves, property, and protected trust assets, is valued at approximately $800 million. Nia's lips parted. She just stared at him, then at the papers, then at the city skyline behind him, then at nothing. 800 million? Yes. Her eyes filled instantly. Not from greed, from the violent collision of grief and disbelief. My father never told me. Ellis's voice lowered. He intended to, but his health worsened faster than expected. He did, however, leave you a recorded message. Nia's entire body went still. Ellis pressed a button on a small tablet and turned it toward her. The screen lit up. Her father appeared sitting in his study, wearing one of his old navy sweaters, reading glasses low on his nose. Alive, warm, real. Nia covered her mouth before the first word even came out. "Baby girl," Isaiah said, smiling softly. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone. And if I'm gone, I need you to listen carefully. Because this may be the most important conversation I ever have with you." Mia broke immediately. Tears spilled down both cheeks. Isaiah continued, "I wanted to tell you everything myself. About the companies, about the trusts, about the money. But I kept waiting for the right time, and maybe that was my mistake. What I need you to know now is this. None of what I built matters more to me than your peace." He leaned forward. "And I did not trust the man you married." Nia shut her eyes. Even in death, her father had seen what she had tried too hard to deny while alive. "I watched the way he admired comfort before commitment," Isaiah said. "The way he measured rooms, cars, and other people's access. I prayed I was wrong. I hoped I was wrong. But if you're watching this, Ellis has likely told you enough for you to understand why I kept things private." Nia was crying openly now. "I left everything to you, Nia. Not because you need money to be valuable. You were valuable before you had any idea this existed. I left it to you because I wanted you and my grandchild safe. If Derrick has already shown you his true character, then promise me this. Do not let your loneliness become his second opportunity." The video ended. For a long time, Nia couldn't speak. Ellis let the silence breathe. Finally, she asked, "What happens now?" Ellis slid a legal pad toward her. "Now, you listen carefully. If Derrick has filed for divorce already, do not reveal this inheritance yet. Not to him, not to his family, not to anyone who can get word back to him." Nia lifted her head. "Why?" "Because greed moves faster than grief. The moment he learns what you control, his tone will change. His strategy will change. His interest in you will return overnight. If he believes you are emotionally broken and financially vulnerable, he will continue exactly as he intended. And that gives us clarity." Nia understood immediately. For the first time since the church steps, something colder than pain moved through her. Not cruelty. Control. Ellis continued, "We will respond to the divorce. We will secure your father's holdings. We will relocate you if needed. We will protect your medical privacy. And above all else, we will make sure your child is never used as leverage." Nia placed both hands over her stomach and nodded. By the time she left that office, she was still grieving, still exhausted, still betrayed. But she was no longer blind. Meanwhile, Derrick Lawson believed his plan had worked perfectly. 3 days after the funeral, he moved into a luxury high-rise apartment with Janelle, posting little hints online without naming names, letting people assume he had simply upgraded his life. He told friends Nia had become too heavy and emotionally impossible. He said he had stayed longer than most men would. He said he deserved peace. What Derrick did not say was that his own startup had been bleeding money for 8 months. He did not say that his lease on the high-rise wasn't in his name. He did not say that Janelle liked men with status, not struggle. And he definitely did not say that he assumed Nia would settle quickly, give him an easy divorce, and disappear into modest single motherhood while he reinvented himself with somebody shinier. Nia did not give him the emotional show he expected. She signed nothing immediately. She answered through Ellis. She moved silently. Within a week, a private medical team had been arranged for the rest of her pregnancy. Within 2 weeks, Ellis relocated her to a gated estate property owned through one of Isaiah's trusts, far outside the city, where security staff knew Derrick's name and face before he ever showed up. Within 3 weeks, Nia had full access to financial briefings, trust structures, board votes, and asset portfolios she had never imagined were connected to her family. At first, the wealth frightened her. The numbers were unreal. Private equity holdings, commercial properties, international accounts, charitable foundations her father had funded anonymously for years. She sat in meeting after meeting, feeling like a trespasser in her own inheritance. But Ellis never let her shrink. "Your father built this," he told her, "and now it answers to you. Do not walk into your own life like a guest." At night, Nia still cried. Money did not cancel grief. It did not erase the image of Derrick handing her divorce papers beside her father's casket. It did not heal the humiliation. But it gave her choices, and choices gave her oxygen. So she made rules. No private calls from Derrick. No emotional responses by text. No late-night nostalgia. No meetings without counsel. No information about the estate disclosed. No access to her address. No chance for the same betrayal twice. Derrick noticed her silence by the end of the 2nd month. At first he found it amusing, then strange, then insulting. He texted her, "You really gonna drag this out?" No answer. He emailed, "Let's keep this clean." Ellis replied, "All future communication will go through counsel." Derrick called from a blocked number. Security intercepted the second attempt. He grew irritated, then suspicious. Janelle, who had initially loved the attention of being the chosen woman, started asking practical questions. "When exactly is your company money coming in?" "Soon." "How soon?" "I'm finalizing a few investor conversations." He was not. The truth was uglier. 2 clients had backed out. His credit lines were tightening. And the lifestyle Janelle expected was starting to crack around the edges. One evening, after he came home to find candles lit and music playing, Derrick thought maybe Janelle had decided to stop nagging and be supportive. Instead, she had a laptop open on the kitchen counter. "Derrick," she said, too casually, "why is your ex-wife's name in the financial section of the news?" He froze. The article headline stared back at him. "Private heiress Nia Whitmore assumes control of Whitmore Family Trust after death of Apex Nova founder." His face emptied. He grabbed the laptop, read once, then again, then a 3rd time. The article detailed Isaiah Whitmore's long-hidden role in Apex Nova Systems, the protected estate structure, and the estimated valuation tied to Nia's controlling assets. $800 million. Derrick's knees nearly buckled. "No," he whispered. "No. No, that's not possible." Janelle's eyes narrowed. "You didn't know?" He looked up too fast. And in that one look, she understood everything. He had not left a broken woman. He had walked away from unimaginable wealth. Worse, he had done it publicly, cruelly, at her father's funeral. Janelle stepped back like his stupidity was contagious. "You divorced an heiress?" He snapped. "I didn't know she was an heiress." Her laugh came out sharp and mean. "Exactly." From that moment on, Derrick's energy changed. Not love, not regret. Panic. He started replaying every conversation, every insult, every text message he had sent. He remembered telling Nia she had become a burden. He remembered implying nobody else would want her. He remembered that Janelle had been sitting in the car while he humiliated his pregnant wife outside a church. He realized with growing horror that if Nia had stayed silent while all of this was true, then she had not been helpless. She had been watching. The next morning, Derrick sent flowers to Nia's old house. Returned. He sent a letter. No response. He called Simone. Blocked. He reached out to old church members, pretending he wanted to reconcile for the baby. Word got back to Ellis immediately. Nia listened to all of it without visible emotion. But inwardly, every desperate move confirmed what her father had known. Derrick did not miss her when he thought she was grieving and ordinary. He missed access. 1 week later, he showed up at the gates of the estate. Security stopped him before he reached the drive. "I need to see my wife," he said. "Mr. Lawson," the guard replied evenly, "you are not authorized on this property." Derrick tried charm first, then urgency, then wounded husband theater. "My wife is pregnant with my child." The guard did not move. "You still are not authorized." Derrick raised his voice. "Tell Nia I'm here." The guard touched his earpiece, waited 2 seconds, and said, "Ms. Whitmore declines." That sentence almost destroyed him. Not because he loved her, because he was finally feeling what powerlessness tasted like when it was served back cold. He shouted toward the house anyway. "Nia, I know you can hear me. This has gone too far." And from the second-floor window, hidden behind sheer curtains, Nia stood with one hand on her belly and watched him rage from a distance so great he might as well have belonged to another life. She did not go outside. She did not cry. She did not tremble. She simply turned away. Janelle left him the following Friday. Not dramatically, efficiently. She packed her things, transferred what she had paid for, and said, "You don't make mistakes, Derrick. You make disasters, and then act surprised when they explode." Then she was gone. His startup collapsed 2 months later. Investors lost faith. A pending contract died after a background scandal surfaced online about his public treatment of his pregnant wife. Church members spoke. An usher spoke. Someone's cell phone footage from outside the funeral circulated privately, then publicly. No audio was needed. The body language said enough. A grieving woman in black. A husband pressing papers into her hand. A mistress waiting nearby. The internet did what the internet does. Derrick became a cautionary tale. By the time Nia gave birth to a healthy baby girl named Imani, Derrick was drowning in bills, legal fees, and humiliation. And still, even then, he thought the child might be his way back in. He filed for shared custody. Then, when Ellis's office responded with documentation requests and supervised access conditions, Derrick made the mistake that destroyed whatever image of fatherhood he had left. He challenged paternity. Not because he doubted the child, because he wanted pressure. He wanted leverage. When Nia heard that filing, she sat very still for a long time. Then she said, "He questioned his own daughter to gain advantage." Ellis nodded grimly. Yes. That was the day whatever remained of Nia's emotional attachment finally died. The hearing took place 3 weeks later. The courtroom was quiet, polished, and merciless in the way only formal institutions can be. Nia entered in a cream maternity dress beneath a long tailored coat, calm and composed, with Ellis on one side and family counsel on the other. Derrick entered, looking thinner, more brittle, but still trying to perform confidence for a room that had already measured him. His attorney pushed an argument about paternal rights, emotional misunderstanding, and the need for cooperative parenting. Then, the judge asked the obvious question. If your client sought divorce while Mrs. Whitmore was 7 months pregnant, publicly at her father's funeral, and later challenged paternity, on what exact basis am I to read these actions as stable parental intent? Derrick's attorney shifted. There was no good answer. Ellis rose slowly. Then, he presented the messages. The timeline. The blocked financial records from Derrick's failing startup. Witness statements from church members. Security reports from the estate. And finally, the paternity filing made days after Derrick learned the size of Nia's inheritance. The courtroom changed temperature. Everybody felt it. Ellis did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Your Honor, this is not a father fighting for a bond. This is a man who abandoned his pregnant wife when he believed she came with grief and inconvenience, then returned only after discovering she came with wealth. His conduct is not confusing. It is consistent. Opportunistic at the beginning, opportunistic now. Derrick tried to interrupt. The judge cut him off. Then, Ellis presented one more piece. A notarized statement from Janelle Brooks, submitted through counsel, confirming Derrick had expressed regret not over losing Nia, but over walking away from generational money. Derrick actually closed his eyes. He knew then the ground had given way beneath him. The judge looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned to Nia. Mrs. Whitmore, do you believe the petitioner has shown good faith concern for you or your child? Nia stood. The courtroom went still. She was no longer the woman from the church steps. Her grief had not disappeared. It had become structure. When she spoke, her voice was low, clear, and devastating. Your Honor, the day I buried my father, the petitioner handed me divorce papers while I was carrying his child and could barely stand. He did not comfort me. He did not protect me. He did not ask whether I had eaten, slept, or even made it home safely. He left me publicly and cruelly because he thought I was entering the hardest chapter of my life with nothing. The moment he discovered I had resources, he rebranded abandonment as concern. He questioned his own daughter's paternity to gain advantage. I do not fear being without him. I fear what access he seeks when he sees people as opportunities. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed too loudly. The judge nodded once. At the end of the hearing, the ruling came down with brutal clarity. Primary legal and physical custody to Nia Whitmore. All visitation for Derrick Lawson to begin, if at all, through supervised review after a mandated evaluation and parenting course. No direct harassment. No property access. No unscheduled contact. The paternity results, returned that same week, confirmed what everyone already knew. Imani was his daughter. But biology, the judge noted, was not the same as character. When they stepped outside the courthouse, cameras waited. Nia ignored them. Derrick did not. He tried once more. Mia, please, just listen to me. She stopped but did not turn fully around. For one pathetic second, he thought he had reached her. Then he said the one thing he still believed might work. I was scared. I made mistakes. Nia looked at him over her shoulder. Mistakes are forgetting an anniversary, she said. What you did was calculated. He swallowed hard. I loved you. No, she replied. You loved what you thought I would cost. Then you loved what you found out I was worth. That was never me. And with that, she walked away. The months that followed completed the reversal. Nia did not become reckless with money. She became disciplined. She took executive coaching, studied the businesses her father had left behind, reorganized key charitable assets, expanded maternal care programs in underfunded Black communities, created the Nia Whitmore Family Initiative, focused on prenatal support, grief counseling, and economic protection for women abandoned during pregnancy. She named the first center after her father. Then, she named the scholarship wing after Imani. Every ribbon she cut, every mother she helped, every life she stabilized became its own answer to the cruelty that once tried to define her. And Derrick? He rented a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of a neighborhood he used to mock. His suits became cheaper. His phone rang less. People stopped inviting him into rooms where reputation mattered. He spent late nights scrolling through headlines about Nia's philanthropy, board appointments, and public speeches. Every success of hers was another mirror held up to the worst day of his life. Because he had not only lost wealth, he had lost dignity. He had lost trust. He had lost the chance to be remembered as anything but the man who abandoned his pregnant wife at her father's funeral and found out too late that he had thrown away a queen. One spring afternoon, nearly a year after the funeral, Nia returned to St. Mark's Cathedral. Not for grief this time, for gratitude. She carried Imani in her arms and walked slowly through the same front steps where her humiliation had once begun. The sun was bright, the air was warm, and the place that had once witnessed her breaking now witnessed her restoration. Simone met her outside and smiled. "Look at you," she said softly. Nia looked up at the church doors. "I used to think that day ruined me." Simone shook her head. "No, that day revealed everybody." Nia smiled. And that was the truth. The funeral had not destroyed her life. It had stripped the masks off everyone in it. Her father had been richer than anyone knew. Her husband had been smaller than anyone admitted. And she had been stronger than even she understood. That evening, after putting Imani to sleep, Nia sat in the nursery rocking chair and opened the last letter her father had ever written her by hand. She had saved it for when her life felt quiet enough to receive it. The final line said, "The wrong people will always mistake your softness for weakness, until the day your boundaries teach them the difference." Nia folded the letter with tears in her eyes. Then she looked at her daughter sleeping peacefully in the crib and whispered, "He made sure we would never have to beg love from the wrong person again." And somewhere in the distance, the old ache of that church step betrayal finally loosened its grip. Not because justice erases pain, but because truth, eventually, puts every person in their proper place. Derrick had chosen humiliation over loyalty, greed over family, performance over protection. And in the end, he got exactly what men like him always fear most: a front row seat to the life they could have had, lived beautifully without them. So if somebody ever walks away from you in your hardest season, let them. Let them believe your silence means you are finished. Let them misread your grief. Let them laugh too early. Because some endings are only the front door to a destiny bigger than the people who betrayed you. And some people do not realize they lost everything until the gates close behind them. If you enjoyed this story, leave a comment with the word rise and tell me where you're watching from. And if you want more emotional revenge stories with powerful endings, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for the next one.